I'm back with Jenna Ellis, and we're talking about political targeting and the Georgia case. Jenna, you talked about the fact that the left has this kind of scorched earth campaign, not just against Trump, but all the people who they identify to be around Trump or supporting Trump or even legally advocating for Trump. And the left sometimes tries to give the idea that, it's not a campaign against Republicans and it's not a campaign against conservatives. This is because Donald Trump is sort of a mini Hitler that has sort of surfaced in America. So Hitler circa 1933, let's call it. Do you think that this something just personally radioactive about Trump? And so after, let's just say that they get Trump. Will they be satisfied and go, okay, Republicans, now go about your normal business. We're perfectly okay now since we got this one bad guy, the bad apple, if you will? Or do you think that this is really part of an emerging sort of political intolerance in which basically people right of center are now fair game?
It's absolutely political intolerance for anyone who is a conservative or who is a Christian or who is a parent, for example, who wants to know what goes on in their child's school curriculum. And what we've seen is that this isn't just a political targeting against Donald Trump and his allies. This is against anyone who's willing to stand up against the leftist narrative in any sphere. We've seen pastors who were targeted, like my own client out of Los Angeles, California, Pastor John MacArthur, who opened his church against a regime in Los Angeles County in the state of California that tried to criminalize his actions and threatened him with jail time and severe fines for simply opening his church in the middle of the pandemic narrative that was false when big box stores, marijuana dispensaries, strip clubs were open, but they were targeting pastors and churches. And thankfully, we won that lawsuit, and we have a permanent injunction now against the state of California. But that was a legal battle that was very expensive that we had to go through. And then there were pastors in Canada that were literally jailed for their faith. We've seen pastors that have been targeted outside of Planned Parenthood for simply standing up for pro-life. We've seen parents being put on the FBI and domestic terrorism watch list. I mean, this is way beyond just Donald Trump. This is the left trying to systematically not only dismantle the institutions of government and what meaningful justice actually represents, what the Constitution's protections actually supply to Americans, but they are targeting their political opponents in every single sphere. And if we don't stand up and say no, in the United States of America, this cannot, not just shouldn't, but this cannot happen, then we will cease to be in a country that we once knew. And I am not saying this hyperbolically. I'm saying this literally, that the targeting of Americans just for political perspectives and standing up for the truth has been prolific. If you look at what Jim Jordan's weaponization of government committee is revealing about the coordination from the Biden administration to target conservative speech and censor them against the constitutionally protected right of speech. I mean, all of this is trying to dismantle the systematic constitutional protections in America.
I mean, what you're saying is that our very status as a free society hangs in the balance, depends upon how we deal with this issue. And I think you're quite right. I mean, there are pro-lifers, for example, who are not Trumpsters per se. In fact, they're focused kind of on that issue. They've been hauled up. They've been charged with violating the FACE Act, supposedly obstructing access, even though they didn't obstruct anything. They're just protesting outside a Planned Parenthood clinic. And I can foresee a future in which parents who say, I'm not going to let my son transition from male to female could be prosecuted as if they're violating this kid's civil rights. And so, in other words, we can see where this is going if this train is not stopped, right?
Absolutely. And we're seeing that as well with how the left is weaponizing this term insurrection, and they're labeling the incident on January 6th and calling it persistently insurrection so that they can weaponize the 14th Amendment and target not only President Trump, but members of Congress. And they already have attempted that with various lawsuits, like in the state of Georgia. where there was a lawsuit targeting Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And thankfully, she won that lawsuit. But I don't see those lawyers that are charged with being a criminal enterprise and racketeering just because they made a legal argument in court and they did not prevail. But this is the kind of persistent weaponization that the left is attempting. They're trying to redefine everything in their favor, and they're trying to literally criminalize conservative conduct.
When we come back, Jenna, I want to ask you about an interesting article in The Atlantic, co-authored by this former, I guess he is a judge named Luttig, but also Larry Tribe, the Harvard Law School professor. And the basic premise of the article is that the Constitution, in fact, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, prohibits Trump from being president in the future. In other words, it's not making the case that if he's convicted or if he's jailed, it's that even now, the Constitution, in its clear language, prohibits Trump from being able to be to run again and I guess be elected. When we come back, I'd like to get your reaction to that and sort of your larger take on that. If aches and pains are your problem, Relief Factor is your remedy. Debbie and I started taking Relief Factor a couple of years ago. The difference we've seen in our joints, nothing short of amazing. Aches and pains are totally gone thanks to this 100% drug-free solution called Relief Factor. Relief Factor supports your body's fight against inflammation. That's the source of aches and pains. A whole bunch of people who try Relief Factor become regular customers. They order more because it works for them. Debbie's been able to do exercises now that for a long time she wasn't able to do. So Relief Factor has been a huge game changer for her, her aunt, other members of our family, Mike here in the studio, and for many other people. You too can benefit. Try it for yourself. Order the 3-week quick start for the discounted price of just $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF to find out more about this offer. The number again, 800-4RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com. Feel the difference.